Welcome to my presentation on the impact of traditional masculine role norms on men's life purpose and well-being. Men's mental health is a topic that has been widely researched over a large number of areas, but the focus of today's presentation will be on the adherence to traditional masculine role norms. Research has found that an adherence to masculine norms does have an impact on men's well-being. Likewise, a sense of meaning in life has been widely studied, most notably in the works of Viktor Frankl and his Man's Search for Meaning, as well as his works on logotherapy, to which he concluded that meaning can be found in work, love, and suffering itself. For the purposes of both my dissertation paper and presentation, meaning in life will be referred to as life's purpose. Life's purpose is perhaps intrinsic to the human experience, so much so that a failure to find and maintain a sense of purpose in life can lead to an increased risk of depression, anxiety, addictions, lower well-being, and suicidal ideation. So while there is a wide range of research into men's mental health in general, as well as decades of research and perhaps centuries of philosophy into the idea of life's purpose, the research into the adherence to traditional masculine role norms and how they affect life's purpose and men's well-being remains somewhat limited. When looking into what traditional masculine role norms are, many studies use what is known as the Conformity to Masculine Norms Inventory, or the CMNI. It is a psychological scale designed to measure how closely men adhere to traditional masculine role norms, consisting of 94 items across 11 factors. A few of these factors of masculine role traits include self-reliance and emotional suppression, power over women, maintenance of a heterosexual self-presentation regardless of sexual orientation, as well as violence. These masculine role norms are often rooted in tradition, that is to say, cultivated and maintained through early gendered socialization. Young men, particularly boys, are conditioned in culture to present and behave in a certain way that is deemed socially acceptable by others, most often peers who are themselves conditioned into these role norms or traditions. So much so that the adherence of a masculine role can be harmful for men's well-being, as traditional masculinity promotes things like self-reliance, i.e. the strong silent type, as well as the expression of, for example, anger, an emotion widely accepted by other men at the cost of the suppression of other emotions. Men experiencing depression can likely be put off seeking support, for example, especially in a culture that conditions men into traditional masculine ideas of self-reliance. Sagar Oriagali suggests few research articles explored the relationship both life's purpose and well-being had on masculine role norms, and this lack of purpose or feeling of being lost in life may indirectly cause a lot of young men, teenagers, and even boys to seek out male role models through alternative means, such as the internet, who present in a certain way, i.e. males who are preoccupied with success, both financially and romantically. This support seeking has been co-opted by harmful internet male-centered subcultures such as the manosphere or the red pill community, as well as cults of personality like Andrew Tate or George, who particularly young men flock to out of a deep insecurity, often rooted in rejection either by a romantic interest or culturally, as well as a perceived threat to the conditions that were placed on them by the patriarchal society that they live in the first place. These have serious impacts on men's mental health, as well as their attitudes and values, particularly towards women. Alternatively, nihilism is the belief that life has no inherent meaning. Chiron further suggests that existential nihilism can be a direct link to suicidal ideation independent of meaning or depressive symptoms. So how do we link all this information together? It became clear to us when designing our dissertation topic that more research was needed to further understand how an adherence to traditional masculine role norms impacted on both life's purpose and well-being in adult men. Our study used a correlational questionnaire design to research the influencing factors of the adherence to masculine role norms, a sense of life's purpose, and well-being within a male population of UK adults. We had 3 hypotheses. An adherence to traditional masculine role norms would negatively be correlated with well-being. A sense of meaning in life would be positively correlated with emotional well-being. And the interaction between traditional masculine role norms and a sense of meaning could predict overall well-being. 49 participants were recruited through Bangor University's SONA program and externally and met the exclusion criteria. The exclusion criteria were all participants had to be over 18 years old, from the UK, and had to be assigned male at birth. This criterion ensured that all participants experienced a consistent pattern of male gender socialization from early childhood onwards. Traditional masculine role norms, as we've seen, are typically imposed from birth, and continuous identification as male ensured stable exposure to these expectations across developmental stages. This alignment was necessary to examine how an adherence to traditional masculine role norms related to life's purpose and well-being. As we were looking at three areas, an adherence to masculine role norms, life's purpose, and well-being, we needed 3 questionnaires to explore the correlation that may or may not have occurred between them. They were as follows. The Masculine Role Inventory, which consisted of 30 questions that were broken into 3 subsections: restrictive emotionality, success preoccupation, and inhibited affection. Men's well-being was measured on the PERMA profiler, which consisted of 23 questions that were broken into 2 subsections: and as you can see by the red circle, that was broken into 2 further subscales: presence of meaning and the search for meaning. As we can see from the table, there was a moderately positive relationship between success preoccupation and well-being, and between inhibited affection and overall well-being, but both correlations were not statistically significant. Likewise, there was a moderately negative relationship between the restrictive emotionality and overall well-being, but again, it was not statistically significant. We must therefore reject hypothesis 1. There was a significant positively correlated relationship between presence of meaning and positive emotion. There was also a significantly negatively correlated relationship between negative emotions, but no significant relationship was found between the search for meaning and positive emotions, but a significant positively correlated relationship was found with negative emotion. Therefore, we can accept hypothesis 2. And for hypothesis 3, the regression ANOVA was found to be not statistically significant. We must therefore reject the third hypothesis. While several points of data in the Spearman's row correlation suggest a relationship, no overall effect on the adherence to traditional masculine traits could be detected. Therefore, there is not enough evidence to suggest that these findings are not due to chance alone. One of the key limitations to our study was the relatively small sample size of 49 participants. This was well under the G-power analysis we did prior to data collection that suggested that we would need 139 participants at least to find any significant relationship and correlation. We suggest that in future studies there should be greater emphasis on participant recruitment to ensure a greater chance of finding a significant relationship. Although, as you may have seen, a few of the results showed significant levels that were within 1/10 of being significant, while we were forced to conclude that hypothesis 1 and 3 were found to be insignificant. This is an encouraging sign, as it suggests that if we were able to recruit a larger sample size than what was collected, there could be a greater chance of finding a significant relationship between our 3 variables. Furthermore, hypothesis 2 was found to be consistent with readily available research, further suggesting that our study was reliable. There were certain complications regarding the MRI and data analysis. Questions 5, 9, 12, and 27 of the MRI had to be taken out of our analysis because none of these questions were administered to any of the subscales of the questionnaire. As a reminder, those subscales were success preoccupation, restrictive emotionality, and inhibited affection. These questions were originally dismissed within the original MRI paper due to issues of internal reliability. Despite not being administered as subscale, the questions were kept in the questionnaire that we gave our participants. If you would like to, you can pause the video to take a second look at the MRI questionnaire in slides 28 through 31. Doing so, you will see that these questions, 5, 9, 12, and 27, are absent. We concluded that these were the questions omitted from the original study, and so were taken out of our analysis. We believe doing so has fixed any issue with our study's reliability, and only a minimal headache was caused. While many of our participants were recruited through Bangor's SONA program, further participants were recruited elsewhere, particularly through rugby clubs in the south of England. This is of some interest as, while we cannot find the mean age for these participants, they were significantly older than many of the undergraduate and master's program participants that we recruited through SONA. This suggests that attitudes towards masculinity and adherence to traditional masculinity may be different generationally, tying back to previous research about the socialization of gendered cultural norms. Furthermore, the idea that masculine gender norms are traditional is worthy of particular attention. The very term traditional suggests that these masculine role norms are so widely accepted as to be ingrained in the very culture in which they permeate. These hegemonic expectations of what constitutes real or traditional masculinity are likely influenced by these older male role models as a means to uphold a white male dominated middle and upper class structure of Western society, where capitalism and patriarchy have been the dominant cultural norm for generations. This is to suggest that men who adhere to traditional masculine role norms may gain some benefit, especially in regards to the maintenance of their well-being. To further this point, Iwamoto suggested in his 2018 study, Masculinity and Depression, a longitudinal investigation of multidimensional masculine norms among college men, that adherence to otherwise problematic traditional masculine traits, those being dominance over women and violence, was shown to actually improve the well-being of some men. Put in another way, an adherence to the traditional culture as defined by masculinity can be of benefit to some men, even at the expense of others. Furthermore, the CMNI was created with a specific focus on white cisgender heterosexual men, as Levant 2020 argued that these types of men were and have been the dominant group in Western capitalist society, in which the norm affects everybody else. However, attitudes towards masculinity are changing. Many studies have come out investigating alternative masculine trait attitudes of those of non-white, heterosexual, and Western points of view and attitudes. For instance, Rochelle 2018 found that a conformity to masculine role norms was a predictive factor of engagement in health behavior among Hong Kong Chinese, mainland Chinese, Caucasian, but not South Asian men living in Hong Kong. Furthermore, social support was a negative predictor of engagement in health behavior, while job stress was a negative predictor in Hong Kong Chinese and South Asian men only. Attitudes towards masculinity in childcare are changing in the Western world also, such as in Sweden, where attitudes have shifted over the last 50 years due to the adoption of gender equality policies, such as paternity care, as a small example. Masculinity and what it means to be masculine has become a mainstream talking point within our society over the last few years, often referred to as toxic masculinity. With the recent edition of Louis Theroux's Manosphere documentary that came out within the last month or so, is one of the latest in a series of looks into this topic and young men and the divisive internet subcultures that occur as a result of all of these things that we talk about. A full deep dive into the Manosphere and other far-right originating internet subcultures, such as the Red Pill among others, is perhaps beyond the scope of this research presentation, but it is worth noting that much of the readily available research into precisely just how young men are attracted into these subcultures focuses on insecurity, often as a result of romantic rejection or rejection by society at large, whether that rejection is perceived or real. We found very little in terms of research into the intersection between a sense of life's purpose and how young men are pulled into the Manosphere and Red Pill, among other things, suggesting that there is a clear gap in the available research in this area. Many thanks to my research team, Harry, Owen, and Medem, and thanks also to Faye, Susie, Kevin, and Laura.